fractions and decimals. So when you compare fractions, you must first either convert all of the fractions to common denominators. A common denominator is all fractions have the same denominator. And common denominators are your lowest common multiple of the original denominator. Okay, so you do this with the lowest common denominator, or the LCD. So if you take 4/5 and 7/9, for example, the lowest common denominator is 45, which is 5 times 9. Okay, and you can always find a common denominator by multiplying your two denominators together, but it may not always be the lowest. Okay, it'll always be a common one, but it may not always be the lowest. An example of this might be 1/4 and 4/6. If you multiply 4 times 6 together, you're going to get 24, which is certainly a common multiple, but it's not the lowest. The lowest common multiple of both of these would be 12. Okay, so you can always get the common denominator, but it may not always be the lowest by doing it in this method. The lowest common denominator, again, of these two does happen to be 45. Then you have to multiply the numerator by exactly what you multiplied the denominator by to make sure you make an equivalent fraction. So, for example, down here, 45 is the common denominator. You had to multiply this 5 by 9 to get 45. That means you have to multiply this 4 by 9 as well. Okay, so you get 36/45. Okay, because 4 times 9 is 36. 7/9, you needed to multiply the 9 by 5. That means you need to multiply the 7 by 5 as well. Okay, so that gives you 35/45. So now if you look at the two, 36/45 and 35/45, you know that 36/45 is bigger. Therefore, you know that 4/5 is bigger than 7/9. So you can also compare fractions using number lines and benchmarks. Now, benchmarks are those spots on the number line where you know that they have to go there. So 0, halfway through your line, and 1 full mark. Those are all considered benchmarks because you know exactly where they should be. You could also use 1/4 as a benchmark and 3/4 as a benchmark because you know exactly where they have to go, okay? So if we look at this set right here, 3/20, 11/20, and 19/20, and we put them on our line. 3/20 is less than half because half would be 10. It's also less than a quarter because a quarter would be 5. So we know that it has to be in this spot. Okay, 11/20 is just over a half because a half would be 10/20. And 19/20 is almost 1 because 20/20 would be 1. So we know where to put our points on the number line. It becomes a little bit more difficult when you have differing denominators. So here we have 2 11ths, 8ths, 16ths, 9ths, and 15ths. So this is where your estimation comes in. Okay, so you have your number line from smallest to biggest, from 0 to 3, because we have something over 2 right here. So you know you have to go to at least 3. You put your benchmarks in, a half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. And then you take a look, and you know that this is 2 3/8, so that has to be over 2. Okay, then you look at these ones which are improper fractions. So this one is an improper fraction. So then we would have to convert that to a proper fraction, which would be 1, because 9 goes into 14 once, with 5/9 left over. Okay, so now we know that this one is also over 1. So this one we know is going to be our biggest. Okay, and we know that 3/8 is just shy of a half because 4/8 would be a half, so that's why we put it here, just before the 2.5 mark. Okay, then we want to figure out, okay, which is our smallest? This is not our smallest because it's got a 1 in front of it. This is almost 1. This is over 1. And so this one has to be our smallest right here. Okay, so 2 11ths. And we know that a half of 11 would be 6.5. We can't have a decimal in a fraction, but we know that that would be half. So we know that 2 11ths is almost 1 11th is just barely 0, and so it goes just right in here. Okay, so again, we're using our estimation and our common sense to figure out where these things go. So then we look at our 1 16ths and 1 5/9. So which one is bigger here? Okay, so 1 1/16 is smaller than 1 5/9 because 5/9 is over 1.5. This is not, because 1.5 would be 1 8/16. So we know that 1 1/16 is going to go right after the 1 because 1/16 is just 1 left over, so it's just barely over 1. And then this one, 1 5/9 that we converted, would go right after 1.5 because 1.5 would again be 1 4.5/9. So we know that it's over a half. Okay. But when we write it back into our line, you'll notice that it was written as it was given, okay, 14/9. So when you put these in order, you need to put them in the method that they were given to you, and I'll show you another example of that in a minute. So that means that the only one left is this 14/15. Okay, so 14/15 is almost 1, so that's why it's been put right here. So converting your fractions to decimals also allow you to order them quite quickly. So remember that, as I mentioned before, when you're given a set of numbers, you need to give them back in the same way. So if we look at this set of numbers here, okay, so we have multiple denominators and a decimal in here, and they want you to order them from smallest to biggest. So the first thing that we can do is we can convert this, because we know what it is as a fraction, we can convert that to 3/4. Once we've converted that to 3/4, then we would want to convert these two that have 4 as a denominator to 8, so that we all have 8 as a common denominator. Okay, so if we've got 3/4 is going to become 6/8, and 1 1/4 is, if we go 5/4 is going to become 10/8. Okay, and the reason I did 10/8 is because looking at it as a fraction rather than a mixed number will make it easier to order with these two over here. So 4 times 1 is 1, plus 1 is 5, so 5/4. 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so then we have 7/8, 9/8, 10/8, and 6/8. So this 6/8 would go here, right? So we go 6, 7, 9, 10. But then when we were to write this on a test, because this 3/4 is now 6/8, so we would write this from smallest to biggest as 0.75, 7/8, 9/8, and 1 1/4. Okay, so that's how you would answer that, even though you converted it. The other thing that you could have done is to convert these all to decimals. So 7 divided by 8, 9 divided by 8, 5 divided by 4, and put them all into decimal form and order them that way. But because they're already mostly in fractions, it's probably easier to convert this one to a fraction. But you can do it however you want, whatever is easiest for you. Okay, so that is our converting our fractions. Oh, I will talk mixed numbers. So how do we create a mixed number from an improper fraction? So if we have 6/2, for example. Okay, so to create a mixed number, we go 2 divides into 6 3 times. So that's a whole number. How do we go back? We go, so if we have a mixed number, let's say 3 4/5 is your mixed number, and we want to put it back into an improper fraction. We would go 5 times 3 is 15 plus 4. Okay, so 5 times 3 is 15 plus 4 is 19, and then it all goes over the same denominator, 19/5. Okay, so 5 times 3 equals 15 plus 4 equals 19. Okay, and then again, all over the same denominator. All right, so I think that covers everything. We'll be doing quite a bit of this in class, so we will we'll talk to you next time.